Welcome to Pleasure Doing Business with You, a podcast showcasing young Black entrepreneurs who have paved their own ways to success. I'm your host, Megan Sayles, business writer at Afro News and Report for America Core member. Today we are talking to Kristal Hansley, CEO and founder of community solar company WeSolar Inc. WeSolar addresses affordability barriers to solar energy adoption by providing under-resourced communities with access to local community solar, which requires no equipment installation. When Hansley founded WeSolar in 2020, she became the first Black woman founder in the community solar industry. Kristal, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm well, very excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad. We have a lot of important issues to talk about today. I'm very excited for our conversation, especially since it's considering, renewable energy and solar energy, which I think is definitely not a new frontier, but people are strongly considering switching to solar, considering the environment and things like that. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we get into all of that, can you just kind of give a little introduction to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm Kristal Hansley, founder and CEO of WeSolar Inc. We're a Baltimore-based community solar firm bringing renewable energy to every household who wants it, right? Mm-hmm. Community solar is inclusive and you do not need a roof in order to access this latest vertical and coolest vertical in the renewable energy space. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm an alum of Howard University. And so, I am excited to take a deeper dive into what the renewable energy is, the trajectory of the renewable energy and what that means for our community and communities of color and women. So yes, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. You kind of jump right into WeSolar, your company. Can you just tell us a little bit what inspired you to launch WeSolar, and also how does it differ from other solar energy companies?
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. I launched WeSolar because immediately after pivoting from my policy background and just my first tenure in the renewable energy space, I was with another startup right when the Community Solar Act of 2015 passed. And I realized on all fronts of the industry, whether it was the off-takers, meaning the buyers, they just didn't look like me, right? Yeah. They did not represent my community. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, not just in some nerdy way, like actually being able to have solar credits and be a participant of the resiliency, the economic resiliency that those savings represent, right? Right now, we're looking at historic inflation that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. Yeah. And those who signed up for community solar or participating in this movement have that resiliency, that insurance policy that protects them against market extremes. And so that was the excitement that I saw in 2018 when I joined another startup called Neighborhood Sun, and I leveraged my policy background and became their director of government and community relations. Wow. And so that's also a note to folks who are a little intimidated by the renewable energy space or the energy space overall. It's like, oh, I'm not an engineer, I don't know anything about the energy markets. Well, I'm a policy person, and I was able to use that. And FYI, the solar industry needs everyone. Just like any new field, you need accountants, you need legal, you need analysts, you obviously need the technical engineers, but you also need the executives, right? You need the visionaries, you need people that's going to make sure that all cultures and backgrounds is a part of the conversation and is a part of your organization to bring those really cool perspectives to the table and put a little swag on it. So I
think we often forget that, the skills are kind of transferable, no
Mm,
matter what industry. You have a skill that can be used in this industry or for this company. It doesn't matter that you didn't have a degree in some sort of renewable energy, or even a STEM degree or something like that. Like, there is a place for you.
exactly. That is the message for your listeners. It is a
Mhm,
place for you, like marketers and like
mhm.
exactly all those transferable skills. Solar is only a baby old, right? Maybe a little
Yeah.
over a decade. So we need everyone to be a part of the solar revolution.
Yeah. And can you tell listeners what community solar is, in case they don't know?
Yes, so WeSolar is a full service community solar firm, meaning that
Mhm,
we develop solar farms, solar gardens, or essentially power plants, but instead
mhm.
of using fracking or natural oil or gas,
Yeah.
like we use renewables, right? We're not digging into the
Mhm.
hells, we're looking to the heavens
Yeah.
for our power source. And so with that, you have this community garden of solar arrays and now folks that are in that utility, so we build in Baltimore City, which we're doing, anyone that's within the Baltimore BG&E grid can now sign up and receive that credit as if that solar farm was on their roof.
Mhm.
Theoretically, they get a portion of that solar farm to offset their energy burden, right? And
Okay.
so the average savings for low income families is around 25% monthly.
Wow.
So if you were paying $100 just by signing up and
Mhm,
participating in this state initiative, right? Maryland is extremely green, progressive, and
mhm,
is a sweeping a pool of clean energy like legislation and pilot programs that's passing at the state level, and
mhm,
19 other states. I believe New Mexico is the last 22 state to sign their own version of community solar. But
mhm.
yeah, now if you didn't have or own a home or own a roof, you now have access to solar energy, right? And so that's the remarkable thing about community solar. And the difference is that only 20% of Americans actually have access to rooftop
Mhm,
solar. You have
mhm.
to own a home. You
Yeah.
have to have good credit. And your
Mhm.
home actually have to be conducive for solar, right? It has to be south facing. You have to have no mechanical objects on your roof, and it has to be a particularly a newer roof, right? You cannot
Yeah.
have a dated roof. And those are barriers and traditional
Mhm,
barriers for a lot of communities who are just getting by, right? We're just climbing our way out of
mhm.
this pandemic induced recession. And now look at, we're going through the historic inflation. And so
Yeah.
savings is key. It has always been key.
It
And
is.
community solar opens the market by 80%, because all of those barriers are removed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems that underrepresented communities, especially like African Americans, the cost of electricity, traditional electricity, is kind of crazy. Can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about how, underrepresented communities might be burdened more by traditional electricity costs?
Yeah, there's so many studies. One fact is over like 30% of African American households go to like utility costs. And
Mhm.
so there's a huge energy burden because whether
Yeah.
you're going to choose obviously housing and food, you're
Mhm.
going to pick your lights, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's an energy burden when you do not have a choice. And so that is definitely when it comes to like resiliency
Mhm.
and weatherization and making sure that we have updated appliances, or we have the new LED lights. And again, those technologies tend to skew higher income earner households,
Mhm.
and that's where we don't really get to save the money on the brand new appliances or updating our windows.
Yeah.
But then you really look to or feel left out, right? And
Mhm.
burden. And so when you have environmentalists and lobbyists, that it took about 6 years for the Clean Energy Act and the community solar legislation in Maryland to pass that part of their clean energy
Mhm.
portfolio. And then DC also has a Solar for All program, which is community solar. We have 2 farms that's open right now
Okay.
in the DC market in the Pepco utility grid. We have 30 farms altogether across
Wow.
9 states, including the District of Columbia, which equals to over 100 megawatts of operating community solar. And
Wow.
so, yes, like community solar is the answer for
Mhm.
the millennials, right? We're the first generation who are technically not earning as much as the generation before us, right? So
Yeah.
we're looking at this curve that is not in our favor. So
Mhm.
we are looking and taking a more scrutiny, scrutinizing our budgets, our household budgets, and looking for solutions and supporting minority owned businesses,
Mhm.
local generators, right? Like most
Yeah.
people don't realize that majority of our energy comes from out of state.
Mhm.
It's cheaper, but it comes from out of state. And so now when you have federal credits and state credits, it allows local energy, green energy, to compete in those markets. And so now being a local generator, meaning we're producing and supplying the energy in our local markets. And that is the beautiful thing, right? We're creating
Mhm.
jobs. We're saving low-income families money. We're saving moderate income families money. Obviously, we don't leave out market rate customers or
Right. Mhm.
middle income or higher income earners because they always participate. Not saying everyone
Yeah.
middle income participate, but they're the ones who are typically signing up for these programs and going
Mhm.
green. It's the ones that really need the economic resilience who is missing out. So that's why my messaging is extremely like, I want more low income families
Yeah.
to sign up for community solar and come to our community meetings. We are partnering with so many different local organizers to get the word out, and that
Mhm.
is what this is about,
Yeah, can
community
you
solar.
exactly. And can you talk a little bit about that work to raise awareness? Because I guess, I mean, if you don't know about community solar and you
Mm.
don't know about WeSolar, how can you take advantage of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, being the first Black woman in this space, right?
Yeah.
I have this cultural, I think, like, I would say I have to answer these calls and these
Mhm.
emails. And it's like, it's a lot for a small enterprise starting out. We're about a little closer to our 2-year mark. And
Yeah.
I do think, like, with media outlets giving us the reach and also governments, like, on
Mhm.
one side, implementation is just one side of the coin. I mean, passing the legislation is one side of the coin,
Yeah.
but then you also need resources for the implementing the part. It can't just
Mhm.
all fall on the grassroots and
Yeah.
the local businesses because we're so burdened. It's only a few of us, and we only have like a limited supply of capacity and what we can do. And so, of
Mhm.
course, we would love to take on that educational curve that's associated with it, but it's a lot without resources and that
Yeah.
educational resources to educate the market because
Mhm.
traditionally people would not associate solar with apartments.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what I
Yeah.
can't. What are you talking? You're in your Jetson era. We're not there yet, right? But we are, right? You
Yeah, we
can
are.
get solar as an
Mhm.
apartment dweller. Did you know that?
Mhm.
And so, yes, I think partnering with the local HBCUs, and we
Yeah.
hired the younger interns to like get the social media lit. We're also working with the Baltimore's People Climate Movement. That's just a collective of young environmentalists and EJ folks across their own different uh,
Mhm.
versions of what the clean water and clean gardens,
Yeah.
renewables, no plastics, like everyone, we're green, and whatever
Mhm.
version you represent, they come together. Um, Talking to other like colleagues in their solar space or in their vertical, whether they're traditional rooftop solar, hey, or if you're in workforce development like Grid Alternative or Power 52, all
Mhm.
of us, and we're reaching out to them and saying, hey, you touch on renewables, that is an entry point, and that's education that people, quite frankly, we take it for granted, but a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know you exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
So as we promote and bring on solar energy and develop these solar farms and signing our community up to these solar farms, you also can have a seat at the table, and share what you are doing and your mission. And it
Mhm.
really only takes someone listening to one of those presentations and following up with those speakers and
Yeah.
following their social media and be like, wow, I can actually get certified and make $50,000 and I
Mhm.
don't need a traditional 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And those programs exist, right? The
Yeah.
average green worker makes over $50,000. Like this
Mhm.
is the fourth industrial revolution. And
Mhm.
that's what WeSolar is about. It's just whatever entry point, whether you have a traditional STEM background or you have a trade, if you
Mhm.
just can touch the little, you know,
Yeah.
the garment, right? It's like we just had people just needed to touch his garment. It's just like if you touch the fringe of
Mhm.
the community solar space or any part of the renewable, and that's your entry point or whatever sparks an idea, and you follow up, you will wind up having this new career in an industry that's emerging and didn't even think about it. And like, wow, I found my footing. And that's what, when communities say we feel left out, that's the reason why they feel left out. They
Yeah.
don't know how they can use their entry points to what they're already doing to
Mhm.
what's happening around them. And it's like, well, look, it's really not that hard, guys. The solar industry, the trades,
Mhm.
there's so many parallel verticals that intersect. And this
Yeah.
is where you build community around this renewable energy space.
Yeah. And also, especially as a Black woman in this space, and I mean, one of the only Black women-led solar companies, uh, is that kind of like your
Yeah.
your hope and your desire for, like, especially the future with solar and it being the fourth industrial revolution, that we can get minority populations in these jobs and in these positions so that they can make, a living wage and provide for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, I think my vision is, I would feel like I've reached the mountain of success when I don't have to sit on any more D&I, like renewable,
Mhm.
like panels, right? It's like, how
Yeah,
do you do it? Like, this is how you do it, guys. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I would like to see the day when I can call my colleagues, and it's a plethora of us in
Yeah.
various positions across the diaspora of renewables. And we can have that sister link or that brother link, and we can really just be that sounding board. And I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And what do you, oh, Krista, in my experience, do
Mhm.
not touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Report, do not do that. Consider this, right? If you do, I'm giving you my warning. I don't have that, right?
Mhm.
It's a few of us. You got Birth Energy, Bob Wallace, you have Gilbert Campbell, Volt Energy, you have the OG Rose McKinney James is a Black woman. But
Yeah,
then like the fact that I can list these people,
exactly.
that is a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem.
And I think it can be unfortunate sometimes when you are one of the first in this space or one of the only in a space that, like you said, you're going to DEI panels and things like that. People treat you like some sort of magical being, as if not everybody else from your community could do the same things if given the same opportunity. And that is the issue, is that it shouldn't be such a surprise or such a momentous occasion if everybody had an equal opportunity to get into the industry in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And addressing those barriers, it's hard. Like
Yeah.
even myself, like I am developing, I'm negotiating, I am questioned at every single point. I
Hmm.
have to defend myself,
Yeah.
and I cannot, to sell this, rosy thing. Like, no, it's the reason
Yeah.
why these numbers and 90% of executives are white in this space. It's an old boys club. Let's just not
Hmm.
get it twisted. And we know that. And why I was inspired is because if no one else is doing it, then I have to, right? I
Yeah.
have to. I have a background, I have the connections. I have a community, and that is it. You
Hmm.
double down on the people that are supporting you. Like WeSolar is 100% community and family and friends funded thus far,
Hmm.
right? That I've bootstrapped with the community by my side. And
Yeah.
when you look at that and you're like, wow, like I raised $150,000, small, tiny investments
Hmm.
from the community, and people supported you. That's like why I get up every single day. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, like people students are calling like, Kristal, how can we
Hmm.
help? And what you're doing is so amazing. We want to be a part of your team someday. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
this is why I get up every day
Keeps
and,
you going.
take on that challenging
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely. And can you kind of just illustrate for listeners the difference in, I guess, like affordability with solar energy versus standard electricity?
Yeah, I think that right now there's no reason where people are paying a premium if they
Hmm.
don't want to pay a premium. If you're in a deregulated market, shop around, right?
Yeah.
And so the issue is that people are really intimidated by their energy bill, right? How many
Hmm.
people would know what a kilowatt is? How many
Hmm.
people know or pay attention when that base rate every quarter has changed, that they're paying attention and saying, oh, I'm paying a little, I have a supplier and they're charging me a little extra. i
Hmm.
i know that I can shop around and get below this base rate, and
Yeah.
then have a community solar subscription that can support that as well, and make
Hmm.
and save even more money. So I would say that, as gas and fossil fuels is really, really cheap.
Hmm.
Up until maybe about a few years ago, renewable energy was always that premium product. So we could
Yeah.
not compete with dirty energy. If you
Hmm.
wanted to save money, then dirty energy all the way, right? Like,
Yeah.
people wanted to go green, and they compared the old styrofoam cups to the new,
Hmm.
renewable cups. They're like, oh, these are nice, and I want to save the turtles, but I
Hmm.
need to save my wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for our families, savings, and if you're in survival mode coming from underrepresented groups and
Yeah.
census tract, that was just a luxury. And
Uh-huh.
now we can say that, with the incentives, we are
Hmm.
finally able to compete.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had kind of like a nice starting run, right? They had a
Hmm.
nice head start. And now we're just now with the policies and the lobbying, we can compete with that grant funding and the tax incentives. And
Yeah.
so now we're able to say, look, yes, dirty energy is cheap. And
Hmm.
if you shop around, you can save money within a deregulated market. And then also you can then layer that with a community solar
Yeah.
subscription to save you even more money. And now we're competitive, right? Now we can
Exactly.
say we'll save you 10, 20, 25%
Uh-huh.
below that market rate. And so that's the difference. With community solar, we can actually not only match market rate, but we can go
Hmm.
below market rate. So every community solar customer in the country, if you have community solar, you're not paying market rate.
Yeah.
None. No one is paying market rate. You're paying below market rate. And that's a beautiful thing, because you have the federal and state tax credits that offer that, I would say, trickle down economics, where
Hmm.
developers and financiers can then offset those tax incentives to the end users, which are the customers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And also when people kind of discuss issues of equity in the Black community, do
Hmm.
you find that we tend to forget about, or we don't talk as much about equitable energy systems?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, people, it's just such a huge like endeavor when people think about like utilities and
Yeah.
energy markets. They're like, yeah, I mean, just blow it up, right? Even folks with money couldn't just come in and control like
Hmm.
the Vanderbilts, right? Like the
Yeah.
original the General Electrics, and like
Yeah.
these guys played out their monopoly card games a long time ago
Mhm.
and set up board. And we've been paying those hotel prices
Yeah, exactly.
on Boardwalk for a very long time, every single month. And
Hmm.
so I think it's more of like, yes, right? Like the traditional infrastructure around energy markets have been monopolized. And
Hmm.
when you're in I would say, this era of social media and Web 3.0 and crypto and the
Yeah.
metaverse, everybody wants community, and
Hmm.
decentralization. And when the idea that, wow, community solar is a combination of all those things, right? It's
Hmm.
virtual. You don't actually need to have a panel. You can come together and actually participate in this offsite solar location and get the credit directly to your bill. Like that's what I think it feeds into where we are as a population and as an economy. Like people are calling for decentralization industries, and people want to be able to work from
Mhm.
home and spend more time, and listen, they're even willing to give up pay raises
Yeah.
for their own choices, and being
Mhm.
able to control their own labor to a certain extent, or whatever that for them to have their freedoms. And so yeah, to have their freedom to choose whether or not you want to pay market rate, or say, no, I know about this solar farm and I can join that and save money and save my planet, and the
Mhm.
supply is going into our local economy, and now we're, the grid can only support so much, generation. And
Yeah.
so if we're replacing old fossil fuel generators with renewable energy sources in our own backyard, that's green jobs in our own neighborhood. You can't
Mhm.
really compete against that, right? Like you're
Yeah.
saving your own air quality, creating the jobs, and then your community is seeing those savings directly on their bills. And just communities who were marginalized from the industry, not just the
Mhm.
traditional communities that were able to participate because of the traditional solar rooftop. But now it's like, wow, we can focus those savings and represented in frontline community, underrepresented in frontline communities that get hit with climate change the most, right? When you look at the
Yeah.
last hurricanes that took place in the flooding that took place in New York and Queens, and
Mhm.
those basement apartments that were flooded, who are typically renting out basement apartments,
Exactly. Who lives there? Mhm.
right? Like those are typically lower income families that's the only housing security that they have. That's a burden. And then look what happens. And
Yeah.
so, that's real. And that's how community solar is able to at least save hundreds. It's the average is $600 annually, um, just in your pocket. That's
Yeah.
that's huge, especially now everyone is penny pinching because of just
Mhm.
gas, and housing rental is up, energy prices are up. So we need every little savings and pilot programs and initiatives. We need to know about it.
And also, even aside from the financial benefit, it just seems kind of like the benefits of just using community solar and having it there permeate into other aspects and areas of your life, like maybe
Mm,
like having green jobs available, having
mm.
clean air and things like that, and just doing better for the environment, which we obviously need to get in
We need to
control
get it
of.
together. Yes, really. I mean, it's really scary when you have like, these extreme weather patterns, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the symptom of climate change. It's not,
Hmm.
this all like gores, Al Gore's like
Yeah.
version overnight.
Hmm.
Um but you see when it's like snowing and then really sunny the next day, it's like, okay, these extreme weather patterns is definitely a byproduct of
Yeah.
our carbon footprint, and we really need to get that together. And that's another thing, like communities of color don't really, they feel like climate change is so big,
Hmm.
like what can I do, right? And it's like, that's
Yeah.
what we're saying, take the WeSolar Earth Day pledge, right? We're saying on
Hmm.
Earth Day, sign up for community solar, right? Like we're
Yeah.
in 9 state, guys, it costs you nothing but
Hmm.
your time, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like look at the research, save your wallets, like protect the resiliency, protect yourself from
Yeah.
market inflation, right? Like
Mhm.
solar, that's never going to change, right? You want to
Mhm.
have like some ongoing variables that work for your side. And also, like, we're community funded, like we have a crowdfunding campaign, like you can actually come in with $100 and
Mhm.
own your own energy. As we develop and also work with other developers and sign people up, we make money, but also you
Mhm.
can be a part owner of that. Like we didn't ever feel like we can own Pepco.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like the overseers that we could
Uh-huh.
never escape, right? No offense, Pepco.
Yeah.
Don't come for me, but you get you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. People actually get a hand and a seat at the table, I mean, with that
Yes.
ownership.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wow, we can do this. We can be a part of this. Like, Yes.
Mm-hmm. What do you, expect for the future of solar? And also, if your expectations differ from your hopes, you can say that
Mm,
as well.
yeah. I believe that, you know, we have like these really like aggressive goals. Like particularly the DOE said we want to have a 700% increase in community solar specifically in
Mhm.
3 years and reach this 5 gigawatts. And right now there's over 100,000 jobs in the solar space in particular. And we want to 3x that, right?
Mhm.
I think, that's clearly we can do that. I don't think it's going to be easy because you do have like other subsidized, very oiled, big oiled
Yeah.
machines that have other interests that compete. Let's just say that, right?
Mhm.
And those are real factors. And that's the thing. It's like we as a people and as a society, we know what the issues are, right? It's like the
Yeah.
kid in the class that was always the problem. We
Mhm.
all knew and know the troublemakers. And at the end of
Mhm.
the day, we also know how to deal with those troublemakers as well. Like
Yeah.
you had the cool teacher that was always cool with that troublemaker. And in this class, he never act up or she never act up.
Uh-huh.
And so not only do we know how to deal with the issues, we have the solutions
Mhm.
to deal with the issues. And so for my expectations is that, the powers that be and the policymakers and the community stakeholders is really tapping into that power and knowledge source
Yeah.
as we really transition to renewables and hydro and
Mhm.
wind and looking at other battery and storage, right? And really
Mhm.
advancing on the existing technologies that we're tapping into these creative minds and these other minority groups and women that's typically not a part of the conversations, but we understand, quote unquote, where those troublemakers are. We understand the issues from our community. We know that this is an entire new economic base that can offset a lot of the issues, and that, it would be great in 5-10 years to see that that's the new way of doing things. This
Mhm.
not always going to the top of the hierarchy and pulling from that. You're just echoing your own peanut gallery, right? It's just
Yeah.
like, hey, let's open this up and really take what Ray Dalio's idea of like, let the best decision win. And right.
Mhm.
And so that allows just not having this exclusive decision making apparatus, but really understanding and tapping into the people that understand the issues the most because they're living, eating, and breathing it, but they also know how to address those issues and have a very unique skill set that wasn't a part of the equation to begin with. And when that is the default,
Mhm.
can you really imagine like how advanced we would be as a
Yeah.
society? We
Mhm.
would be the Wakanda, right? Like that is the
Mhm.
Wakanda at that point.
Yeah.
And so like that, if that's my expectation, Crystal, you keep dreaming, right? But that's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's a goal.
That's the goal. Like it's ambitious, but that is the goal.
Yeah, and why not set ambitious goals? I mean, the more
Exactly.
ambitious, the closer you'll get to the unforeseeable or unattainable ambition anyway. So,
Exactly.
and also I wanted to give you the chance. WeSolar just, created this partnership. I wanted you to talk to our listeners a little bit about that. I'm sure you're super excited.
Yes. I mean, so look, right? It's really, really unusual to have anchor large institutions to what, like to get in bed, right? With
Hmm.
smaller companies. Like they're typically very well courted with the
Yeah.
powers that be. And when you have partners like the University of Maryland Medical System and their energy committees and their outside energy consultants come to you and say, look, we want to leverage our buying power
Hmm.
and support our local WMBE. That's along with our goals. We want to support clean energy sources. We have our own needs that we
Yeah.
need, goals, right, that we need to meet. And no, you're here, you're in our backyard.
Hmm.
Let's leverage what we need to already procure and help stand up, affirm, and stand by you. And so on Friday, we are announcing our 8 megawatt community solar goal, where they are purchasing 50% of the energy. And the other side of that will be for local communities to offtake that 50%. And we're looking at Baltimore City plots of land, and we're talking to developers to get us to the 8 megawatts. And Maryland just changed their community solar legislation, which gives us a lot more capability and capacity to build more community solar, which is really great. Literally, the legislation just passed. It was capped at 2 megawatts, and now it's 5 megawatts. And so now we're able to even, offer better terms to some of the landlords and those parcels that we were looking at. And I'm just saying, look, we're not only supporting you and we're giving you resources. Like, they're giving me a pre-development fee that's unheard of. Developers don't get paid to the end. They also are supporting me with development consultants, right? These people charge a lot of money, and they're like, thousands of dollars an hour. And we're like, hey, you can reach out to our consultants as you literally build us power plants. And then I was also a part of their incubator accelerator pilot program with the University of Maryland Business School. And so they're looking to diversify their supply chain, and they partnered with the University of Maryland Business School to offer about 10 of us, or a little over 10 of other like local entrepreneurs in this space. And we had like this 6-week program, and different topics were covered. And I'm like, wow, like, this is environmental health, right? This is what this looks like. This is a true grassroots environmental health partnership, where it's just like, hey, like, as I can't speak to them. Clearly they save cancer and all that. And really, when you think of a community, you need a hospital, and like the medical system, they have 150 locations, right? So they're really a big deal. But it's just like, they are on the front lines of dealing with the chronic illnesses and the conditions of asthma and the climate change impacts that obviously disproportionately impact African Americans. But now it's like taking it a step further and saying, we want to actually leverage that and help prevent some of those asthma rates and the carbon footprint from even getting there by leveraging our buying power. So that's a whole new twist to what environmental health and environmental justice look like. So yeah, I'm really excited to announce this partnership and all of the social impact benefits that will come from that. It's I'm really proud, and I'm really thankful that they took a chance on WeSolar.
Yeah. I mean, first, I just want to say congratulations, because it's an amazing team up. It's great for WeSolar, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Also, I also want to say that what I love about the partnership is that it's not just about, here's some money, take this money, and, you can advance your business, something like that. They are giving you tangible resources, like being able to take a class, being able to have access to like contractors, being able to consultants, things like that. Like that's what we, it's not just about money. It's not just about giving a donation. It's like you said earlier in the conversation too, we need resources to be able to implement programs and things like that. And that's not just financial resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge footing, right? To build a power plant of that size, it is around $25 million. And it's just like, hey, when financiers see that you have an anchor tenant, you can finance and go to a bank and say, hey, I can pay off this loan, right? Like when you have a loan and they like, well, do you have a job? Yeah, I do. And they say, well, who's your tenant? And well, clearly they'll be paying their energy bill. Cool. So that helps, right? Like that's the finance side. Like they know that this would help with financing such a huge project. And then not just that, like you said, and clearly that makes your bottom line and revenue looks great. You're in developing this huge project and over this major deal. It's like, great. Like at the same time, you still need resources to get that done.
Yeah.
And that's how you compete, because those resources and that knowledge is exclusive. If you know, if you don't, good luck, right? You're not helping you be our competitors. Where it's just like, they're like, hey guys, like we want to do this. We want to create viable and green jobs. How do we do this? And tapping into their community and listening to their leaders and saying, you know what, there's promising, again, when you tap into the community, we know the problems, but we already have the solutions. That's exactly what the partners did. My partners, they said, okay, we have this goal. And then they're within their own stratosphere and economic base. They're saying, okay, but we also have other community partners that's like headquartered in our utility grid and doing this work. Let's have them to the table and let's see where the synergy lies, and let's get it done, right? And that's the model for the country.
And Kristal, before we wrap up with our interview today, first, thank you so much for talking with me. I've enjoyed our conversation, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to plug anything that you would like to plug to our listeners to raise some awareness or get them connected with WeSolar on socials and things like that.
Yes, thank you. Listen, sign up, right? Like protect your families from economic inflation and just have that resiliency, right? Sign up to WeSolar, WeSolar.energy. Take the Earth Day pledge. Join us on social media. Follow us, participate in our community discussions. And that's an entry point, because you never know where that entry point will take you. You never know where you just didn't have access to just this industry and the speakers, and you learn something and you're able to pass that on, right? That's how we take care of community, and it's building community within community, because obviously the solar is a community in itself. It's a little siloed, but now we're like, okay, community solar, that is a thing, but I really want to build real community around this. And so that's what, and then also, listen, guys, like, you need assets. Like, people are always saying the recession and this and the economy crashing. When you know that you have gold and silver, and some people are going to decentralized Bitcoin, own a part of a solar company.
Exactly.
Like, guys, we have crowdfunding. Like, we are community funded. So if you want to look for other investment alternatives, go to WeSolar.energy and check out our crowdfunder. It's really cool. And as you can see, we have real buyers and corporate clients that's at our table and really supporting our mission. And we plan on being around for a very long time to compete with the larger energy players in this world. So look out, Pepco. No, just kidding.
No, I fully believe that you're going to be a big competitor, and I'm looking forward to that day. I think it's such an exciting time for just renewable energy in general and for solar. And just congratulations again on this new deal, on all of your successes and running this company, and the great work that you're doing to benefit underserved communities and save everybody some money.
Yes, saving some money. We're hiring. Look out for that. For our job posts on our careers tab on WeSolar.energy. And obviously we want to hire community members to spread the word and get paid for signing up your own community. Like, that's what it's about, and keeping those resources amongst the community. And thank you so much, Megan, for just following up and reaching out and allowing us to share our story. Like, I've always wanted to be a part of this media outlet, and I'm really happy. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure talking to you, and it was a pleasure doing business with you. So thank you, Kristal.
Well, hey, I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna see Megan Sayles. Sign up.
Absolutely.
Okay.